Hi everyone, so I wanted to share my thoughts in regards to teaching comprehension strategies to adolescent learners. So a lot of comprehension, especially in grades 7 through 8, 9 through 12, deal with comprehension when reading. And some of these strategies are really important and imperative to implement when teaching complex text. And one of the first strategies that Tompkins talks about is activating background knowledge. And activating background knowledge could be utilized through group discussions, could be utilized through anticipation guides. And I find that activating background knowledge creates such a connection between the text and the reader. So it allows students to feel a lot more engaged and invested in the text, allowing them to ultimately comprehend the text a little more. One of the other strategies that Tompkins talks about is connecting. Creating connections is another important strategy for readers in order to fully understand the text. It allows them to create meaningful connections, and the text Tompkins talks about is making text to world, text to text, and text to self connections. And this is something that's also implemented at a high school level, in which students are often making connections with the text in order to ultimately create meaningful inferences, to ultimately create and evaluate and do things at the DOK level, level 4, in which students are able to recreate using their knowledge of connecting and activating their background knowledge. Tompkins also talks about drawing inferences, which I find really important because oftentimes students can state explicit inferences or explicit comprehension skills in which students are able to recall, retell, define. However, students sometimes struggle with creating meaningful inferences. And this is often known as reading between the lines, and oftentimes in order to create meaningful inferences, students have to activate that background knowledge. They have to use clues that the background knowledge that they can take from their background knowledge and create those sorts of inferences. This is really important when you're teaching students comprehension based off of text, because when they create inferences, then they can draw connections that are not explicitly told, especially when the upper grades for adolescents, sometimes author style is not necessarily there to tell the readers right then and there. It's often allowing them to create these sort of inferences. Oh my god. There we go. I think the notion of a reading log or a triple journal entry or a double journal entry or a dialectical journal, that is all crucial to aiding comprehension. And when you teach students these skills, it allows them to really evaluate which skills they're using, and they are also looking at how they are using the skills and how is the skill helping them further understand the text. So I think that was really important. Some of the other skills that Tompkins talks about is predicting, monitoring, and this can often be done questioning. This can often be done by, in my opinion, using Costa's levels to questioning the text, where students create questions based off of the text. They respond to each other's questions based off the text. This is something that is often utilized in my classroom. Predictions is something that's really important. For middle school grades, sometimes it may not necessarily be as present or predominant with illustrations in high school, but you can often use this notion of the title, the author, and a little bit of background information to create these sort of predictions that illustrations don't really show in adolescent literature or in high school literature, but nonetheless they can be utilized. And it's really interesting how Tompkins also talks about the new comprehension literacy, the online strategies that can be used, the predicting, the evaluating that can be used when looking at online strategies as well. So that was often really interesting because multimodal is often a little bit more complex than novels. So students, I notice, struggle a lot more with utilizing materials and comprehending materials digitally as opposed to physically. So some of these strategies can often be utilized for both physical novels and digital literacies as well.